Hi, welcome to my session. I'm so excited that you're here. We're going to be talking about change management for business applications. So who am I? I'm Jackie Simmons. I've spent the last over 8 years now, primarily only in business applications implementations. Started off my career in solution design, obviously went into project management and interacted with a lot of executive sponsors and have kind of transitioned more into that role. I've always been really people focused, and I think clarity, communication, and continuous improvement really go into that. You always want to make sure that people are at the center because people do business, right? Not the tools. Specifically around change management, I am ProSci certified, and I try to stay up to date on all the recent trends and attend conferences, things like that. So today we're going to talk about change management in business applications implementations. Starting with a story, years ago, we did a call center that had no calling. There was no phone pop, there was no dial-in, and often I hear from people, how on earth did you do a call center with no calling? Really the first question is probably why? Why would someone do that? And then the second question that I think is more interesting is how. So why? There was a lot of reasons why this customer did this. Mostly it was around they had bigger fish to fry. It was far more important to get the underground like plumbing and systems in place rather than the phone. And a lot of people think that in a call center, the phone is part of that, but they just needed their database in check and getting out of Excel and those sorts of things. So that's the why. Why would they do this? The how, I think, really comes down to this ProSci success triangle. So just like the legs of a stool, there's three aspects to a successful deployment. You got leadership, project management, and change management. For this organization, they had really tight project management. Scope was under control. Their budget and timeline was really clear. They had it completely program managed, beautiful, right? They also had really strong leadership and sponsorship. What do I mean by that? They were active and visible. They had a clear vision, and they were good at articulating what that vision was. So yes, of course, the long-term play was eventually getting call pop, eventually getting all of these calling features. But for the short term, they just needed visibility, reporting, consistency, being able to be audited, all of these great things. And so they were able to articulate that to their teams, to their management teams, and beyond. Not only that, they were active in the engagement. They participated in sprint demos, they participated in the kickoff call, and often presented updates. So it was a two-way communication instead of just, straight downwards. But then lastly, they had this change management component. So their expectations were communicated to the individuals. We also had some focus groups, making sure that people not only understood the change, but were a part of the change, that they felt ownership over it. So even though it wasn't this shiny dream end state, they were part of it and part of the journey. And they wanted to see it be successful just as much as the PMs and the leadership. So all of these things together, that's how you can get a call center with no calling features. And it was a successful deployment, really happy. And obviously then phase 2, you can get into more of those features. But without all three of these things playing together and working together, this would have never happened. It would have had massive resistance, and no one would have ended up using it, because what value add is there? So what does change management do, right? We had that example where you can basically make the impossible and kind of ridiculous a reality, but at a more tangible level, you can increase your ROI. So obviously with business applications, you need the users to use the tool on day one. They need to be able to do their job just as well or better on that first time in order to get that ROI that you're looking for. It also has risk mitigation. So you're delivering something that end users are actually going to use. And it's not just a swing and a miss, right? And then you're going to meet your objectives ultimately. And I really like this concept in general where it's two-way communication. It's not just leadership communicating down. Let's have a conversation around this change. So how do we communicate upwards, sideways, downwards, etc.? So ProSci does a whole bunch of studies and work with individuals and organizations, and they found that obviously change management helps get to the goals that you're looking for. And then I love this picture kind of towards the bottom, but change is made up of individual changes. So yes, the org goes through a change, but each individual contributes to that. And if we don't look at all of the individuals and help them through their journey, you're going to have suboptimal success. Okay, so that was a lot. How do you make that more real? So regardless of who's doing your implementation in-house, with Velosio, with another partner, you're probably going to follow a very similar delivery methodology. You're going to have your planning up front, kind of, preparing for what you're about to go under. Then you're going to have your configure and develop. A lot of times you see things like MVP or minimum viable product. Like, what is that small amount of chunk that we can release into production? You're going to train some end users and then deploy, go live support and then circle back. So this shouldn't feel stagnant. I know a lot of times we look at it through, start and end, but really it's going to be a continuous process, especially when new tech is emerging constantly. So that's kind of at a high level. You're going to go from plan to operate on some scale. For OCM, it lines up really, really well. So you're going to plan for change, you're going to prepare for change, and then enable change. And it really kind of depends on where in the life cycle and where on the wave you are to figure out where you're at. Plan for change is your assessments. It's your baseline communication plan. It's just getting the tools assembled to make sure that you're thinking of really everything, right? Then you can go into prepare for change. These are those focus groups, getting ownership from the individuals who are impacted by the change, communication two ways, etc. Lastly, you'll go into enable change, various training models available. But how do you make sure that users are going to pick up your business applications tool immediately with as little resistance and pain as possible? And then, of course, there's other things that you can do, reinforcement management, things like that. But it all kind of circles back to plan, because once you get through this wave, up comes the next. So you're ready to plan and adapt. So really the uplift kind of on the first one, and then you just iterate and move and just kind of continue to ride along. What happens when you don't add those things that I highlighted? At least for business applications, this is the things that I hear pretty often. UAT, it sucks. It's hard. You have these users who are not testing SMEs. They're end users. They're humans that are doing their day job, and we've ripped them out of that to execute on test scripts. And there's a lot of unknowns. They feel like it isn't ready. They haven't been communicated to. Why am I here? How do I even sign off on this? All of those things are communication based, setting expectations and making sure that they're well prepared for the task that we're asking them to do. So anytime that I hear of UAT challenges or taking too long, things like that, there could be some technical challenges, but more than likely there's change management activities that were skipped, not looked at, etc. All right, so let's say you get through UAT, you're now into training. This one's pretty easy. Like, how choppy is it? How effective is it? Are you going in and immediately executing on a plan with success measures and all of these things? Or is it a little more ad hoc and you're winging it? I see that more often than not, where in train the trainer environments, the trainee, so whoever is being trained to do the training, it just kind of shows up and hopes for the best. And then it ends up not resonating with the rest of the audience. So just really making sure that your training and user enablement is super clean. And then, of course, you have long-term usage challenges. If you have no reinforcement and you're not following that wave I talked about, going back into plan and looking at the next change that's coming, you're going to get backwards movement, right? People are going to go back to their spreadsheets, back to the old way, and then you're going to have to redo the change all over again. So these are the things that I hear about when change management is not part of the discussion. You basically have that triangle from before, but then one of the stools is broken off. So you can have really strong project management and strong leadership and sponsorship, but if you don't have change management, these things can still happen, and you could get potentially employee churn. There's so much change happening day in and day out. This is just one piece of it, and we're really disrupting how they do their job, especially when it's business applications. So areas for success. There's quite a few, but we mentioned plan, prepare, and enable. We'll walk through those right now. So plan for change, as I mentioned, it's really getting that baseline and understanding so that you can know where you're going. It's a little bit like having a map, right? How do I go from point A to point B, and how do I make sure that we get there really smooth? So in this, we do a lot of one-on-one interviews, both with stakeholders and leadership, but also a representation group of individuals who are going to be affected by the change. That part, selecting that group, can be a great activity in itself because it makes you think, who on the team that is getting this change, like the new NetSuite or new D365, whatever it is, who is the go-to on the team? Who do people naturally gravitate towards and listen to? And then also, who speaks up when there's problems, right? Who is the person that says, hey, this isn't going to work for us? Who's coming to the table with that? Finding those people is a great starting point because you want to have a good representation of how people are really feeling. You don't want to just grab all of the teachers' pets and everyone that's, the A+ student, because you're going to not have a fair representation. So you definitely want to have a range, and then chatting with them, figuring out their baseline skills, their ability to change, how change tolerant they are they fatigued? Like I mentioned, there's so many things happening. So a business applications deployment is just one piece. There could be change in leadership, change in org structure. Change is all around and constant. So let's get a sense of what's going on. All of that information will help you build your communication plan. And this is just a plan. It's not set in stone. It's really more of a strategy, but you need to vary your sender, your recipients, your messaging type. Is it email, town hall, all of those things? And then we always like to tie it back to ADKAR, which is part of the ProSci methodology. It's awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. And so, how does this message really tie back? Another final consideration on communication plan is I think it takes something like 7 times for someone to get a communication across. So just making sure that you're over communicating rather than under communicating. Okay, so now that you have your baseline, you can go into prepare for change. This is where we bring in those individuals to help move everyone and move the needle. It's a great way to monitor resistance because you get that real-time feedback. It's a little bit like therapy, right? So instead of it just being top-down change and this is what we're going to do and you better adhere to it, especially with younger generations, I think like Gen Z, this is their favorite thing right now, just making sure that they have ownership and a voice at the table. So just having this focus group where they can contribute, you get to have such rich, valuable insights so that you can re-look at your communication plan and figure out if you need to make any adjustments. Lastly, you have user enablement. So typically there's train the trainer. That works great. It's really, really impactful for long-term success. However, not every organization or business applications group has a dedicated trainer. So you might as well train everybody, have a very structured training approach and make sure that it's all measured and you have, desired outcomes and training objectives, things like that. So everything that I just said kind of in a snapshot looks like this. And these are the things that when you're looking at your business applications project and deployment, like what are the people side that you should maybe look at? So resistance management, change tolerance, we talked about that, a communication plan. You also want to monitor your resistance. So it's not build the plan and then it's stagnant, kind of iterate and make sure that resistors are being heard, but then also, you use special tactics to make sure that it doesn't grow. Refine your communications, as I mentioned, build your champions network, train everybody. And then surveys are great, but I do think, a little bit of a asterisk there. Surveys are a little bit like Yelp, right? You're going to get 5s and 0s. So those people that are in the middle, they're not signing in. So just keep that with a grain of salt. I think it's great for engagement and just hearing more information, but it shouldn't be the only thing that you do. It's very much complementary. All right. So to kind of close us out here, I do want to remind everybody change is constant. I was at a conference recently and someone had mentioned, one of the speakers, and it was fantastic. The speaker said that he was talking to a friend. His buddy said, "Oh, can you imagine, like, our kids are never going to fill up their car with gas?" And he said, "Our kids are never going to drive," right? Like, change and evolution is so constant. And so if there's anything from this presentation that kind of resonates, is that the goal is not to get back to steady state. We're going to keep evolving and keep changing. And, Microsoft is going to always release new technology, things like that. And so how do we build a framework and a repeatable method that gets your users and your teams excited about change and excited about the new thing that you're giving them? How do you give them the tools to, make them not burnt out, right? Meet them where they are, talk in their language, get them excited, and the rest hopefully should be easy. So I said a lot there. I'm going to be around for more conversations. Would love to connect. Please hit me up on LinkedIn. My email is available on the screen right now. I will be in our lounge. I forget exactly what it's called, but I will be there. Would love to continue the conversation. Would also love to talk about any techniques or things that you've seen. I really obviously enjoy talking about these things, and I hope to talk to you soon.